Hey, today I'm going to talk about my 10 years sobriety from alcohol. And I can't believe that time has come. It's in some ways feel like it was only yesterday that I embarked upon continuing that journey. And yeah, I mean, it started out because I had an unhealthy relationship with it. Probably had an unhealthy relationship with it from the day that I was born into this plane of existence. And then when I got to a particular age, it must have been about 14, 15, and started engaging in that activity myself, it became very apparent that I had an unhealthy relationship with it personally for myself, and the choice of to use it and why I was using it, became very apparent as well through that. And obviously, societal norms may lead one or many of us to believe that it's okay, it's normal, it's natural, etc., etc. Insert whatever excuse here. And so, obviously started out with intergenerational patterns and stories throughout various family genetic lines, ancestral lines, and then also growing up with one of the main parental figures as well, being fully immersed in addiction with it, to the point that in the eyes of society they would be considered a non-functioning alcoholic. And they are no longer here, and they left this plane of existence about 4 years ago. Bless them. I have lots of love for them, and they taught me many, many things, and unconsciously and consciously. And I really do thank them for those challenges, and then the gifts that have been transformed from those challenges as well. So obviously, when I decided that I needed to have a break from the substance, it wasn't something that I made the decision and then I was disciplined in doing it for long periods of time. Although when I would, at the start, when I decided it was really not a good idea for me to engage in this activity, to consume the substance, I would often go for periods, maybe 3 to 6 months, without consuming any of it. And this all sort of started about the age of 17. So I lived in Aotearoa, New Zealand. At the time, the legal drinking age, I think it was 18, so most people weren't even legally allowed to drink yet, and I was already considering the potentiality of actually having to remove it from being consumed into my body. And so I engaged in that for a number of years, sort of on again, off again with it, and also grateful that it never led to like a daily habit, but it was very much that when it was consumed, it was not very well regulated. I didn't have very good self-regulation with it, and also just the awareness of why I was using it. And it's not just about, most people talk about they're consuming alcohol, it makes them feel more socially comfortable. Like, yes, it can provide that, but I was also aware it was masking many other aspects of self that really needed to be looked at. And also seeing how it was playing to the story of self-worth, and also the family figure that really brought that into the home as well, the patterns, and then my relationship with them, and then how I would continue patterns of that relationship with my relations of male counterparts. And and not always male, but yes, so to avoid going into that too much, I'm going to talk about how obviously I had to have some breaks from particular environments. I had to really sort of pull myself out of maybe particular social settings and friendship groups for a while. It wasn't long periods of time, but a substantial amount of time to, I guess, then be able to re-emerge myself back into particular environments and be strong in that, and not be feeling like resentment or judgment or even enticed to engage in the activity again. So I do recommend, if people wish to have breaks or move away from an addiction or something, to actually remove yourself from the environments that are encouraging that. Not forever, because obviously the real healing is when you then re-immerse yourself back into these environments, and you can remain within your sovereignty and your integrity of not falling into old habits again, and also not projecting your own judgments about the substance. But also there's also this shift that can obviously happen with, yes, you can re-immerse yourself back into particular environments, but you may also find that you just generally don't have anything left there to learn, or there's not really a resonance as well with the environment that you're then engaging in. So for me, it was like removing myself from situations of obviously bars and and small drinking spaces, to then immerse myself into other environments like outdoor music events, which we call them doofs, or like small music and lifestyle festivals, which I now engage in on somewhat of a regular basis. So yeah, the substance consumption is still there, and it's a varied substance consumption that goes on in that environment. And so yes, I'm not necessarily back in the old environments of the bars, but I am still in environments occasionally where substances are there, and I'm in a place where I feel really good about my choices to not engage in that, and not place any sort of judgment or resentment upon others when they choose to engage in activities within the environment that maybe that I don't engage with to that level anymore. And obviously, giving up alcohol could be seen as a better use of your time and a better use of your resources, on a practical level. But I also have found other really wonderful benefits with it, in the sense that it was a real good chance for me to reprogram and rewire like my brain, my body, and also learn to embody particular emotions and look at particular shadows or aspects of self that were no longer being masked. So it's like things had to surface, and they had to sit with that instead of masking it with something else, and then reprogramming and rewiring, literally, your whole being, to be able to be comfortable in that uncomfortableness of those things that were arising. So just from my observation, a lot of, actually all addiction is a masking of something that we are uncomfortable to face, and sometimes we are able to face that and really work through that in our lifetime, and sometimes we're not. So, and we have various range of addictions that obviously we are now engaging with on a regular basis in a modern society, a society of modernity, if you may call it. And it's not just always about substances that you're putting in your mouth. Obviously, screen time is a big one, and there's a whole other videos I could do into that, but I won't, because that's not the purpose of this vlog. But also the choice to not engage in an activity that a lot of mainstream society engages in. For me, I get a little bit of a kick out of this feeling of a bit of a FU to societal norms, and I can see where that comes from and why is that there, and it's been helpful for me in many situations in my life, but also being aware that that's there, and not engaging in that sort of rejection of mainstream society to the point that it's detrimental to oneself in order to try and make oneself so unique and so different. You know, that's a very interesting sort of Aquarius polarity that I'm having to engage with sometimes. And yeah, it's just interesting how obviously certain patterns and programs that you install in childhood, and then also in conjunction with maybe other belief systems. Yeah, anyway, I won't dive into that. And the other thing that I like about no longer consuming alcohol is that I'm not giving permission. I'm not giving overt permission for other entities and emotions and people to enter into my physical form. And that provides further clarity of like where I am, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, my spatial awareness. And with that, yes, I am sensitive in certain ways. So if I want to feel a little bit of a high, I could just go stand next to someone that might be on a particular substance on a dance floor, and I can play in that energy and that space for a little while, and then I can step away from it, cleanse myself, and come back more to myself. And even when I'm in that space, I'm able to maintain a certain level of my own sobriety as well. So I'm not lost in the substance, and I can literally turn it off like that, which is great. And so that sort of leads into it's allowed me to embody more of my own sovereignty and autonomy of self, but also those around me. Because I've got a better awareness not only of self, I can also take better care of, you know, the environment and the people that I'm engaging with as well. So I've become a better value, better of service, I guess you could say, by no longer consuming alcohol. And yeah, I think that's really what I mostly wanted to say about this. You know, obviously I could go into a lot more like details, and I could also do more of like a how-to, although I feel like I've already shared and I've touched on some of that here. You know, like I've said before, removing yourself from particular environments is probably one of the biggest steps. And that can be more challenging for others. That also really depends on the kind of like attachment styles that you may have embodied, and how comfortable you are with being in your own space, because sometimes you have to be on your own for a little while in a certain way, so that you can kind of reconfigure your residence and like what's your purpose, and get really clear about who you are, to then bring in people that are of a different space to maybe where you were engaged with in the past. For me, I'm okay with that. I'm actually probably a little bit more on the dissociative side of the spectrum than more of like the anxiously attached, whereas I'm aware if you were quite anxiously attached and codependent, you may struggle more with being away from people and like sort of separating and creating space between like friendships and other kinds of relationships. And obviously if you're done a lot more work in that sort of attachment style and you're sitting more in the secure center, then you probably won't find much of an issue with many things actually. Anyway, the point of this video is not about attachment styles, just to like bring that in and make you aware that some people, it's very easy for them to be on their own for a while, and for others they may struggle more, and so you may also have to seek support outside of yourself as well. I felt very privileged, and another challenge that I've turned into a gift in a certain way is that I do find I'm able to work quite independently on many things. However, also careful not to swing too far into that pendulum as well, because the real centre of that is interdependence, right? So, yeah, that's what I wanted to share about, 10 years not drinking alcohol. I feel fucking amazing. I'm really happy that I've got here. I'm also very certain, like 111% certain, that if I was to engage in consuming that substance again, it would no longer be an issue for me. I feel like I've worked through a lot of what it is that was leading me to engage in that activity in an unhealthy way. And nowadays it's not something that resonates with my mind, body and emotional space. So it's just like if you don't like eating pineapple, you're just not really going to eat pineapple, right? And I just feel like that with alcohol. Yeah, I love the clarity that I have now without consuming it. You know, I can go to these multi-day festivals and still get up at a reasonable hour and not feel really like ugh, because I went too hard on a substance, particularly on, you know, the night before, which is really great. So there's like provides more like sustainability for me in that space too, which I really love. And I know that the way that I am and my choices I make also have an encouragement and an inspiration and a flow-on effect with those around me. And you know, if the moving into spaces of like what we might call like the new earth or ways of living that we want to embody and embark on, like we have to be that sort of change that we want to see in the world. And this is part of that journey for me, is stepping away from the reliance upon substances to become more into your sovereignty and your interdependence. And you know, like, what if you ended up in a community where you had no access to such a substance, but you were addicted to something? You know, like that's just an idea and a way of showing you of how when we become addicted to something and we're wanting to step into other ways of living, it can be more challenging. So we really want to work on that stuff now and not keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. So yeah, the sooner the better is what I've got to say. And then you've got less years of like imprint of a habit. And you know, and for some it's like moving from one substance to another, to another, to another, and that can be a progression for some as well. For me, it was more of a really needed to end it there. I engaged with some other substances for a while, and then it was yeah, okay, I'm out of this. And because also having this like intergenerational partnering with substances, I also had always had a very clear boundary with myself that I would not consume particular substances. I would just not pick them up. I wouldn't touch them, because I also not only know through like there's a psychological potential of addiction with it, but there's a very high biological addictive effect on the body as well. So when you're with substances that have both of those, obviously it's a recipe for a lot of challenges that you may or may not need to actually embark on. And you know, they've done research for many years now that shows that if you were to introduce a substance to a wide range of people, like most of the people that would form an addiction with it are those that have had a really, really challenging childhoods and really, really challenging adolescent years, and often through the family unit and the communities that they're living in. And so if you've had those sorts of upbringings, it is best to try and stay away from substances for as long as possible. If you find you're still working through a lot of those childhood patterns and stories that were imprinted upon you from your family and the community that you were living in. So yeah, that's there's so much I could probably unpack in this, because it's not really about alcohol, and it's not really about many things that we may see it to be on the surface. There's just so much more that goes into addiction and why it's there and why it affects some people and not others. And yeah, if you are on this journey yourself and you're needing some kind of like support, maybe something, you know, that I could do in the sense of providing you with some tips or other information that I could provide as well. You know, you're welcome to message me, contact me through various social media links. There's an email address there too if you want to keep the conversation private. If there's any sort of public questions that you feel would be beneficial for others to see and also engage in an answer with, then you're also welcome to leave that in the comment section down below. And who knows, maybe the next one I do will be my 20-year no alcohol journey. So yeah, I will see you again soon.